Hi guys, welcome to the next webinar of Yieldbird. This time, considering the period we're in, we wanted to tell you a bit about Black Friday. You probably have a lot of knowledge and experience from the previous years, but this year, considering of the pandemic, is different in many ways, also in terms of the Black Friday and how it is expected to go both on the buy side and on the sell side. So we wanted to update the set of our tips and tricks for publishers to get the most out of it this I would say high season or highest season in the year. And to give you a first-hand insights, I invited today to join me our head of customer success, Krzysztof Lis, who used to support brands, global brands such as Samsung, IKEA, and others in spending their budgets in the smartest possible way, also during this tricky period. So hi, Chris. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Shimon. Hi, everyone.
And you probably know me. If you don't, my name is Szymon Pruszyński, and I'm head of growth at Yieldbird. So that's all. Introduction's done, so let's dig in. So, guys, 2020, crazy year. Everything is different. Everything is surprising. A lot of unexpected events on the way, especially since March or maybe January if you're sitting in China. So things haven't happened as they used to. You cannot compare year over year, same periods in a very easy way. And although the results started growing in the last couple of weeks, and we see and we hear from many countries that the CPMs are growing, the campaigns are coming back to the usual levels from the very, very lows of April and May. We don't expect it to be exactly the same in terms of the Black Friday spree for many reasons. One reason, of course, is that because many people lost their jobs, because many people try to, be careful with the spendings and their money and their purchases, there will probably not be that many purchases during the Black Friday period as it would be in a normal year, but also because many brands are simply not spending much because they are saving money because their business is limited, like restaurants, like gyms, cinemas, and stuff like that. But also they are trying to limit the damages done by a pandemic to their business. So we expect it will be pretty much similar, but in other way. So Chris, can you tell me what's your expectation? What do you hear, especially from the media houses or the brands that you're talking with, when you do something correlated to our publisher monetization? Do you think there will be more money for digital publishers, less money for digital publishers, or like maybe it depends from some, details like their vertical or the geo, and why?
Sure. So definitely we believe there will be more money on the market because people are simply moving the way they're spending their monies. Because, for example, in Poland, the malls are closed and most of the shops don't work at this point. People eventually need to fulfill their needs in some other way, which means they need to get their clothes, for example, online, which means that more and more publishers will see the increase in revenues if they noticed these types of campaigns. Some of the verticals, some of the parts of the economy are not spending almost anything at all, like, for example, all the travel companies, because they don't make any money at this point, so they are not willing to spend it on top of that. So depending on the vertical, you might see a significant increase in the amount that you're making, because, for example, all the blogs related to new electronic products like new mobile phones, new computers and consoles, or new games definitely get more traffic and also more ads revenue. But some other verticals, like all the travel bloggers, for example, will see the negative effect because they will get less ads than previously. And it means that the publishers need to make some changes on their end to help them make more money in this time of year.
Okay. Yeah, I was interested about, if there actually will be that many purchases, because on one hand, you have a situation where you hear from advertisers that 70-80% of the advertisers, even the digital advertisers, they are limiting the ad spend. So we can expect they will spend less this year than they did last year. But on the other hand, we also hear that the budgets that are not used, so like out of home ads in cinema, they are being shifted in part to digital. So even if some brands are not spending as much in general, we, I think, can expect the shift of the budgets to digital, which means that digital advertising is like appreciated and benefited because of the pandemic, right? Because as you said, e-commerce, this is one thing. You have to buy online if you want to buy something. But the second thing is the online is now the best place to get your users, because they are not driving that much, they are not watching movies. So yeah, I expect it may happen, and actually there can be more budgets than less. But one thing gets me interested, because normally the brands that are spending the most and the brands that have like the best kind of offers are like gadget technological brands, right? Sure. As you said, phones, consoles, games, headphones, whatever. Do you think they will be spending as much money, considering that, I hear a lot of my friends telling, yeah, this year we're going like handmade gifts. We don't need the super crazy wireless headphone this year because, it's better to wait and see what will happen. I can lose a job, someone, my wife can lose a job. Do you think this kind of purchases can be limited this year, or they should stay, in your perspective, on the same level?
Well, I would say that taking into account the global situation and also the trend of moving from less gadgets to more DIY stuff because of the environment and so on, I believe that we will see some effect of that. But on the other hand, it makes the advertisers spend more even, because they need to incentivize the people to buy their products more than they had to do it previously. What you just mentioned, that they will move the budgets from digital out of home or cinemas to the internet because their users are there. And also on top of that, judging by the numbers, the buyers will spend the money where and when they're getting the best results, the best return on investment. And since the people are not noticing the ads displayed on the billboards outside because they are not going outside anymore, definitely I believe we should see an increase in the digital spending because of all these effects combined.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I expect similar way. I'm really interested to see what will happen, because we can guess everything, and the reality will verify it. The other thing I'm really curious about, and also I'm experiencing some signs of this change as well, is the duration of this Black Friday campaigns, because normally it was like. It was aggregated in this week of Black Friday. So the Black Friday was the whole peak of spend. And like 2-3 days before, you could see some Black Friday campaigns. Then that's like Cyber Monday. So it was extended also 2-3 days after. Yeah, but now it's like we are a week before. And I see Black Friday deals for at least like week or two already. Maybe it's not like, I'm not being bombed by it every day on every website, but I see it pretty often. And not only the technological brands, but also like you say, clothes, furniture, everything, like different verticals that normally don't do Black Friday. So do you think that the duration of the Black Friday campaigns, the frequency of the deals, and spreading them out in the time will be also different? Will be that kind of difference like we see like 2 years before, 1 year before, when it's like growing slowly, picking and then falling down? Or will it be more like flatly growing higher to the Christmas?
Well, I think it will be more spread out, because I think that we observe two trends here. The first one is that every year the buyers tend or want to be first in the whole food chain or in the pecking order, because if somebody spends all the money they had on hand on something, they're not willing to spend it anywhere else. So if some of your competitors started your campaign 2 days before you did, then this competitor will get all the buyers' money, and you will not make anything. So the next year you are thinking about starting this campaign a couple of days earlier than before. So this is the first trend. I think we see every year that these promotions, these deals happen or start even earlier than before. But on top of that, I think that since the Black Friday deals on the internet were so tightly combined with the deals offline, this is the sole reason why we had the Black Friday, the Cyber Monday, because we had Black Friday deals offline in the offline shops. And at this point, we will have it to some extent, but much lesser than in the previous years. So I think that because of that, we will see that it not only starts faster, but it also lasts longer. On top of that, since the buyers, and I mean ad buyers, need to watch every penny they are spending, they might not be willing to spend as much on the Black Friday and Cyber Monday, but instead of driving the rates very high, they might be willing to spend less, but close to that time, maybe on Thursday, maybe on Tuesday and Wednesday next week. And we should see the effect more spread out over the longer period than just Cyber Monday and Black Friday that will get the most money, make us the most money.
Sure. So would you say that it's a smart approach for publishers, for example, to not wait with making some optimization activities like changing floors up until the last, I would say Wednesday or Thursday before Black Friday, just doing it a bit earlier, or like keeping it a bit longer?
Well, I would say the good time to make any adjustments, or at least to make an analysis of what is happening on your open exchange, on your open auction, and then judging by the effects, maybe adjust your UPRs. The right time to do it is now, or it might be even yesterday. I assume that our video will be published in a day or two from now. But like I said, the earlier you start, the faster you start watching the results and judging the numbers and making this determination, the better, because you might lose some money when you're doing it like a day or two too late.
Cool. So when we're talking about watching the spend, watching how the buyers react to this specific period, as I said, I always thought there is like specific group of brands, but also like verticals of spenders that is increasing this spend very much. Other also do, but not like us, like, rapidly. And there is no such huge difference in like 200% or 300% difference in the spend in this period. So do you think that this year the biggest spenders will be the same, or their pool for publishers will change, I don't know, in 30% and 50%? Because normally when we try to optimize and do it as soon as possible, we look at who was spending the most in this period last year, and we're flooring him high, or we're offering him deals, special offers. Is it applicable now? We know, for example, that Sony will be spending because they are now promoting like crazy PS5, yeah? Sure. Xbox, like Microsoft also. But what about other guys? Do you think the phone companies will be spending as crazy? Who else was promoting Black Friday very much? I'm just guessing. I haven't seen much travel deals during Black Friday, so this maybe will not be impacted. But I'm wondering about everyone else.
Well, I would say we will see a similar effect this year because most of the brands that spent a lot of money previously are definitely going to spend money this year as well, because they're still willing to sell their products. And the travel, for example, that you mentioned, it's not just the best time of the year to think about your travel plans for the winter holidays or maybe for next year. So it's partially the reason why they're not advertising as significantly as other brands. So I think that we should see a similar effect this year as well.
Okay, so similar set of the buyers. I'm guessing we can see a bit different players, especially considering the changes in the habits of the users sitting at homes, like working home office, needing different kind of stuff. So I'm guessing some brands related to making the home office work, or like quarantine life more pleasant, can try to take advantage. And also, I'm also guessing that the type of luxurious items, even like cars and stuff, they can limit their spend. Of course, they have problems selling because people are not buying cars and flats during the crisis. But still, I think they were normally pushing this, like, this year models and everything. I think they can not be as high valued players with that high share of the spend as in the previous years. But in general, yeah, I guess the key spenders, the technological companies, gadgets, all those Sonys, Apples, Microsofts, I think they will maintain the spend, but also thanks to the closing of other channels. So they will push the budgets, so you have to sell everything through the e-commerce. Yeah. But now, all those foreseeings put aside, what can we advise to publishers who want to get the most out of this year, even if it's not as easily foreseeable and as easily comparable to the last year? What can we advise them to do? Should they change their a long-term strategy and make some short-term changes, or do they need to stick with what they have now to not confuse the buyers or risk some kind of, I would say, misoptimization? Because if you do something for a long term, you're on the right track, and then you suddenly change your strategy. So it can get the algorithms on the buy side confused. Which way would you go?
Well, the long-term strategy should definitely remain the same. And the long-term strategy always should be in the line of try to make the most out of your inventory, try to improve the quality of the inventory, and try to, price your inventory accordingly to the value that you're providing the users with, the buyers with. For example, the viewability or the CTRs. These are the most important parameters that are taken into consideration when the buyers are thinking about where to spend the money. So the long-term strategy should remain the same, but you can make some exceptions in the period that we're discussing now, because whenever we make some changes, or any publisher makes any changes, these changes will be noticed by the market after some time, but usually a week or two is not enough to make some significant dents in the strategy. When we could, for example, the approach should be twofold. First thing, we should, maybe not should, but at least we should think about changing or adjusting the UPRs to make the open market more accessible, to make the buyers spend the most by simply lowering the floor prices here. And we don't want to keep those low floor prices for long, because eventually they might teach the market that the value of this inventory is rather low, or lower than previously. So in that period of increasing spending, we can lower the UPRs for some time, and then eventually get them to the previous level, the previous higher level. But if we leave them for a week or two on a lower level, it should not affect the long-term performance of the inventory. The second thing the publishers should do, and we advise them to do whenever it's feasible, is to get in touch with the buyers that you trust, and you have some relationships with, and advise them to spend more money using deals. You can always create additional deals. If the buyers are using preferred deals that are not flexible in terms of the price, you can always create 2 or 3 additional deals with lower prices and tell them, well, now you could use this one. It's a bit cheaper. It should provide you with the same value of inventory, the same value of traffic, the same quality of traffic. So you should probably consider spending more money here. But not all of the publishers can do it on their own, because they don't have their own sales teams, they don't have the relationships with the buyers, and the open market optimization is something everyone can do. So this is why I think everyone should at least think of those 2 approaches and try to do them at the same time. On one hand, allow more buyers to be able to buy on the open exchange. The prices need to remain at the level that will make you safe from all the unwanted ads. So you don't want to leave them at 0, but at some reasonable level. And on top of that, you should get in touch with all the buyers that that you work with, and try to convince them to spend more, especially because on the deals, the private deals, and you can provide them with some additional targeting options that are not available elsewhere. For example, you can target specific sections of the page, specific tags within the domain, or maybe specific user groups that are not targetable elsewhere, which means that you can get some additional fee for it because this value might be of some use for the buyers.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Also, I'm thinking about two aspects. One, it may be a curveball because I wanted to ask you, what if you are a publisher and you do both? You lower the floor prices on the open market for this period, and you push brand to spend more in deals, and this brand is buying from both channels. What will be in your best guess, their approach to the next year when you come to them and say, guys, let's get you those deals for Black Friday again, and they say, no, because you lowered the floors on open market, so we prefer to wait and see if you do it again and buy cheaper inventory on the open market?
Well, the easiest way to mitigate this issue would be to simply leave the prices for the open market low for some time, but with the exception of known buyers that you are working with using the deals. You can always limit their ability to buy on the open exchange, which is quite often used by the publishers as an incentive to make them use the deals in the first place. So this strategy is good, and it should be used this time as well. Well, you can always explain that this year was rather difficult and rather different than everything what we expected and anticipated and everything what we learned so far. So the buyers should not expect it to, well, I don't expect it to be the same next year, and I hope it won't be. So the buyers should not expect that the publishers will have the same approach next year as well.
Sure. And what about open market optimization? Because you said everyone can do it, so they should do it. But we know that the game is different this year. It was already different last year, to be honest, as well. But I'm talking about the change of the model on GAM, right? From the second price to the first price. You could try and guess that Sony will be bidding high this year to promote PS5. So you could just apply some high floors and make them pay more because of the gaps closing between the highest bid and the second highest bid, all that blah, blah. But with the first price, is there a way to actually make money on the open market with flooring specific bidders high and counting that their bids will be even higher?
Well, I think that all the publishers should take into consideration the relationship between the fill rates and the CPMs that they're making, because it's always easy to sell everything for a poor price, and it's not the approach that we want to take, because at the end of the day, we want to make the most out of the specific number of ad requests that we have available. So, and on top of that, we don't want to display any unwanted ads or actually any ads at all, because it's always better to show no ads and make the same amount of money than to show more ads and, like I said, make the same amount of money. So the publishers should make some cautious changes in regards to the UPRs and observe the fill rates and the CPMs. If they see that they lowered it too low, and eventually they have significant increase in the fill rate, but also drop in the CPMs, it means that they should probably make a small adjustment up and make the prices a bit higher. Well, the best approach always is to try to make the UPRs as granular as possible, as detailed as possible, especially even in terms of specific brands, specific geos, even specific ad units or ad sizes. But honestly, it's not that easy. It's not feasible to do it manually, and because of that, we devised an automated solution for that. But at least taking into consideration how much time you have on hand to do it, you should at least try to do as much as possible. Start with the most basic, most general, most generic UPRs, and then go into more details, like from the top down.
Yeah, so the baskets recommended by Google, yeah. Okay, Chris. So we talked about what we expect in terms of the budgets, the spenders, and how the publishers can approach the optimization, considering that. But what about the core and the whole base of the monetization for this period? So what about content? Because This year is also crazy regarding the content because in the Q1, you had a situation when you had not enough budgets on the market and you had crazy big amount of page views, crazy big amount of the merchandise, especially from news websites or like health related websites. Everyone is checking, is the country closing, what will be the new limitations. Everyone was sitting at home looking for some news. So the CPMs dropped very much, and even the publishers that doubled the number of page views couldn't make up the lost value, the lost revenue. Now it's a bit came back to the proper level, but what would you expect and what would you recommend? Because we're in the second wave, many countries still is shut down. I would say I don't see that big spike in the number of page views. So do you think publishers for the specific period should try and generate more content than they have now? If yes, then how much more? Is it like 10% more, 50% more? And should they do it, I don't know, by differentiating the topics they're covering or by spending more money on the traffic acquisition, like Facebook, SEM or something? What would be your best guess in this case?
Well, like you said, so far we covered the concept of squeezing more money out of the traffic that you already have, but it would be also nice and wise to try and increase this traffic in this period when you expect more money to be made. So, one of the strategies you should at least take into consideration is changing the amount of content you produce. And it's also, it's very important, especially for the niches or the verticals that have low traffic at this point. For example, people are not really looking for travel opportunities because they're maybe not that specific. They're not willing to spend any money at this point, but they might be thinking about where will I go the next year. But if you have a content, for example, a travel-related website, you should think about producing some content that's more suitable to the brands that are spending at this point, because every time the brands that are buying on the programmatic market are not targeting specific domains, but rather targeting specific people. You should keep that in mind, that they don't really care where and when they're going to spend the money on which domain. Well, I assume that this domain provides us with a traffic of high enough quality, so I'm not leaving it on a block list. But despite if that's not the case, I don't really care where I will buy these people. So you should think about attracting people who are more valuable for the brands that are spending at this point. For example, people looking or are somewhere in the purchase process of a new console or a new mobile phone, or I don't know, some other technological gadget. So, for example, if you ran a website with articles about traveling, you could write a bunch of articles about new gadgets that you could buy at this point that will be useful when eventually, sometime next year, we are all free to go wherever we want. So publishing 5 or 10 articles, maybe five is more than enough articles about this topic, will provide you with some additional traffic that has some significantly different value than previously. So this portion of traffic would be easier to monetize because these people might be interested in buying some of the products that the brands are now advertising very intensively. So at least think about that. The second thing I would advise the publishers to do is, well, try to avoid anything that will put you on the block list or some blocking filter. Well, the brands at this point, since the spring this year, are very sensitive to all the issues regarding the pandemic. So whenever you put a word like pandemic or COVID or coronavirus or something like that, this specific article, the specific URL might be filtered or marked as not brand safe. So eventually it will probably make your effort not worth the time, because you just spend some time, maybe some money to drive the traffic to produce the content, and you're not able to monetize it because the most important brands who actually need to use those filters, to use those block lists, definitely will not buy your traffic, your content, your traffic on your content, because it has one incorrect word. This is a very difficult from the technological perspective, because the articles regarding the coronavirus or the COVID can be of the positive in the positive tone, or can be in the negative tone. They can be associated with the coronavirus deaths or some I don't know, some positive changes on the market, or some third-party organizations that are helping people with coronavirus, something positive. And these articles will be a good place to advertise your brands, but you cannot easily determine if the article is suitable or not. So you are simply limiting everything that's associated one way or the other with this kind of topic. So if you are writing an article about those technological gadgets that will be useful when we are finally available, when we finally can go outside, try to avoid explaining the reason why we cannot do it at this point. Very specifically, because like I said, using incorrect words might flag your article as not suitable for some of the brands, which is a thing that we definitely want to avoid.
Okay, so following this topic, or like expanding this specific part, two really concrete questions. One question is, because you said about getting some users who can be much more valuable for the brand spending a lot to your website, but how to get them? What do you think is the kind of content that can get them on your page? Should the publishers write, I don't know, best Black Friday offers in this and this vertical? So do the summary of best Black Friday offers in travel, in gaming, in sports, in something. Will this click a lot? We can just guess, of course, but we can try and foresee it. Or should it be like how this Black Friday is different in this and this vertical? Yeah. We wrote the piece on our blog about it. We have a lot of clicks. People are reading that. So it shows that people are actually trying to find out how this Black Friday is different from what they know and how they should adjust to it. So what do you recommend? What kind of topics should publishers go with to get the users? And the second question is, do you think it's worth to spend more money on the paid traffic? Will the prices of getting people be as high as the CPMs in this season? Will this balance out on the positive or negative way, in your opinion?
Well, starting with the first question, I would divide the publishers into two groups. The first group would be the group of people, the group of publishers who are making the content that this kind of article that you just mentioned, like the best, for example, phone-related deals for the Black Market 2020, Black Friday 2020. Black Market 2020 sounds peculiar, but yeah, Black Friday 2020. If this type of content fits into your usual content, then it's definitely a way to go, because people understand what's going on the market. The consumers also understand what's happening. So if you have for example, mobile phone related content usually, then you can always produce an article about this issue, explaining where to buy the cheapest phone at this point. People are always looking for new ways to spend their money, and especially new ways to save their money, and somehow they think that by spending more but on better deals they're saving somehow, which is not the case. But what eventually I have in mind is that if you would produce this kind of article last year, you should definitely do it this year as well. But if we come back to my previous example of the travel-related articles, then I wouldn't focus on the Black Friday so much, because all the other people in general might be somewhat overwhelmed with the Black Friday deals that attack them from everywhere. So adding this additional point of contact would not be advisable, unless the first group I mentioned just a moment ago, unless this type of content is something that they are specifically looking for. If they might be looking for the best Christmas presents ideas, then they definitely might be also looking for the best Black Friday deals as well. And this is the type of content you should produce.
Sure. What about the paid content, the getting content in this period, paying someone for clicks, someone, of course, Facebook or Google, not in any other way?
Well, I would assume that this should be taken very this is a very sensitive matter and should be observed closely because, like we discussed for the last 20 or so minutes, the brands are willing to spend more, but they are also willing to spend more on Facebook, Taboola, on everywhere else where you could, as a publisher, get your traffic from as well. So it means that the increase in prices on those markets can be as well significant, which might be even higher than the increase in the amount of money you are making. So you should, well, at least think about getting the paid traffic as well, but you should monitor it very closely. And, well, you should not start doing it if you don't have a way of associating specific revenue to the paid traffic that you bought, because if you cannot determine if it's worth the time, you should not start doing it. The risk is simply too high, I would say.
Okay, so very granular approach to measuring the ROI on the purchase traffic and seeing which article is bringing you how much money in return. Cool. That sounds smart. That sounds advanced. So let's go to the smart and advanced ideas to do some optimization for this period. We have a lot of publishers who are like, one-man armies, or they don't want to do radical changes, like big changes in their approach, but they are all interested in smart solutions, especially adjusting to what's going on, what's changing in the industry. And those changing are quite frequent because every year you have a change, one or two changes that change the game a lot. So what would you advise as, I don't know, two top most important changes or tests which you would recommend to publishers who are all about smart improvements, but without radical changes in the strategy or in their approach to their job?
Well, I would suggest doing two things. First and foremost, once you get the user one way or the other, you should keep them for as long as possible. So if you have an ad server in place, you should implement some auto-promotional campaign that will redirect the traffic from one place to the other. You should also, if possible, add some internal links, maybe some related articles, something like that, because it's always easier to keep the user on the page than to get additional user from elsewhere. So this is the best way to utilize all the unfilled impressions by simply displaying your auto-promotional campaigns. If you have more than one domain and you can differentiate the traffic somehow, maybe you could show to a fraction of the people one creative and to the other people additional creative, and move the traffic between your websites. Also, this is something that should be taken into consideration. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, and this is cool because I don't know if you all guys are aware, most of you probably is. Google changed the way you can use the house ads level, line item, priority, in GAM. So you can no longer use it for commercial campaigns, right? So you either put something which is as you said, your website, your product, your shop, which you can advertise, or you basically waste the traffic, right? So you have to be smart here and maybe just try to make one or two additional pages on each users by doing smart auto promoting other cool articles that you have. So this is actually correlated to the changes that happened this year that frustrated a lot of publishers because, of course, Google is taking away some control from them. And this sounds like a smart idea. Anything else?
Well, I would add to that point that if you cannot really move the people around, you could at least try to capture them one way or the other. For example, get their email address by providing them with something of value that they can get in exchange for providing you with the email address, and then build your own email list and use it in the future. Because any way that you will be able to monetize or to capitalize on the traffic that you have should be taken into consideration. The other approach I would advise has something to do with what we discussed about changing the UPRs. Well, while in general we don't advise the publishers to use the target CPMs rules in the Google Ad Manager because the target CPMs provide the publisher with less control over the inventory and may decrease the inventory's value in the long run, this is the time to test it, to use it, because, well, the best approach would be to use the non-target CPM rules and do it very granularly. But if it's not the case, if you cannot do it because you don't have enough manpower, then changing these rules to the target CPMs would be something of value for you, because these target CPMs will eventually provide you with the value that you wanted in the first place. The target CPM will be achieved, but on the other hand, the impressions can be bought cheaper than the target value that you provided the GAM with. So we don't advise the publishers to use it generally, because like I said, in the long run, it can decrease the value of the inventory. But this is the quite peculiar time of year, and I think this approach could be at least taken into consideration, but only by the publishers who have no other option on the table, because anything else is better. But if you need to do something and cannot do anything else, then using target CPM rules would be at least should at least be considered.
Okay, and what about the approach with still sticking to the UPRs, but instead of lowering them? For example, let's say scenario, publisher has UPRs on 50 cents, and he doesn't want to have them on 5 because he doesn't want to frustrate the buyers. He doesn't want to do drastic changes. Do you think that changing those UPRs to like 49 cents, just 1 cent, can make a difference or not, in your opinion?
Well, whenever I was bidding for anything, I was always using a number that's not round. For example, if I was bidding for something on the internet and I wanted to buy it, I didn't pay 10 zloty for it, but 10.03, because I assumed that everyone else, if they were willing to spend 10 zloty, they would bid 10 zloty. So I was using the same strategy on the buy side as well. So I was using non-round numbers, but of course, since everything is just recalculated to dollars, because the market is happening in USD, it doesn't really matter that much, unless this value change is reflected in dollars as well. So the publishers who have their own UPRs in dollars should at least think about lowering it for a bit, because 50 cents versus 49 cents might make a difference. But of course, a general advice would be to try to change it for a while and then observe the changes in the fill rate and in the CPMs. If at the end of the day you're making more, so your request cost per mil is higher than previously, this is the way to go.
Okay, so last question for the smart changes and for the going with the flow of changes in industry. Tracking of the users' cookies, because we know that most of the money in Black Friday period comes from retargeting, right? You show people ads of this PS5, you see them browsing 3 times through the page, putting it to the basket, changing their mind, leaving the basket, blah blah. Those are the people that have the highest chance for giving you the money back that you spent. And we know already that for Safari and Mozilla, which stands for like 20-something% of the traffic globally, you cannot track the users with the use of third-party cookies. So do you think it's important to try and recognize those users in some way, or try to sell different kind of ads for those specific users in this specific period to get the most money that you can out of them?
Yeah, sure. So if there's any way, if you can in any way, shape or form get the information about those users who are more valued, provide the buyers with more value, you should at least consider creating private deals and offering them on the market, offering them to the trusted buyers. Because if, for example, you have an article about, new cars on the market that emerged this year, people who are reading this article might be somewhat interested in buying a car right now. But if you have another article that's, for example, discussing financing options that are the most popular at the moment, that are available at the moment during the whole economical, the state of economy at this point, people reading this particular article would be, by my consideration, more interested in buying the car, because it shows that they are thinking about buying the car and are just now looking for a way to do it. So if you could differentiate the people who read those 2 articles, you could sell them on, well, not sell those people, but sell the impressions of the ads to those people priced differently, because the people who read this article, the second article, provide the buyers with more value. They're more likely to buy a car. So If you have anything like that, if you have any way of judging or guessing at some point that some of the people who read a specific portion of your articles are deeper or further in the purchase path, you can and you should create a separate deal that targets specifically those people or specifically those articles, because it's easier thing to do. Most of the buyers are not targeting specific URLs in a very granular level. They might be targeting some domain or subdomain, maybe a section on the page, but it's nothing that when I was managing the campaigns, I didn't almost ever start with very granular URL level. I was starting with a domain, and then when I saw that it's performing poorly, I moved it to the block list. And so if you can, for example, target specific inventories on a section or say 50 articles over your entire inventory, that allows you to guess that people who read in this article are more interested in buying specific products, you should target these articles with a specific deal and offer this deal for for a slightly higher price to the buyers. On top of that, when it's done, you could think about directing more traffic to it, but you should direct more traffic to it, but keep the same quality of the traffic, so it doesn't change, because when the buyers see the decrease of the value, they will definitely stop spending, and we want to spend them the most money, so we need to basically keep them happy at the end of the day.
Sure. That sounds like a smart plan. Also, two other suggestions or ideas that I often hear from the publishers that I talk with is that when they want to either increase the performance and it has something to do with the browser, they try to, optimize those specific browsers out of the acquisition of the traffic. Yeah? So they try to focus on buying more Chrome, less Safari and Mozilla, if it's still profitable, if it's balanced positively on the net ROI. But also what they are doing is a bit late for that, of course, a week before Black Friday, but they are implementing all kinds of identity enhancing solutions, such as, all those unified IDs, ID5, LiveWrap, now Trade Desk, Unified ID 2.0. So maybe a bit late for advising that, but for the next year for sure, try to implement something that will allow you to identify these users and again, use retargeting on them, also on Safari and Mozilla, because of course in the Black Friday it can give you the most, but as the rest of the year is going, it will still make a difference. So I would also advise those two things. But coming back to the thing that you mentioned already twice, and just quickly wrapping it up. So the transaction types. Open market, of course, anyone can buy, and it's easy, accessible, fair, and so on. But you have also the private deals, and you said a couple of times that private deals are important. They are beneficial both for buyers and sellers, so publishers and advertisers. And they will be getting more important because they give you the advantage into targeting when the targeting options are getting more and more limited. So first of all, what is, in your perspective, the biggest advantage for a publisher of having the private deals scaled up, especially in this season, in this period? And the second question, sorry for just combining it so much, but second question, what is the toughest in doing that? Because easier said than done, right? Just go ahead and scale up the deals. We see many, even big publishers having problems with that. So why is it beneficial? Why is it tough?
Well, let's start with a simpler question. Why is it tough? It's always difficult because it takes some personal contact. We always believe that the programmatic ecosystem, programmatic market is easier because everything is automated, everything is simple, and everything is done by the computers, and we just click somewhere and it's all done. Yeah, it is to some extent, but only on the open auction. And the most difficult and time-consuming task would be to get in touch with all the buyers that you are willing to sell your impressions on using the private deals. And it always requires some negotiations. Oh, here's my rate card. I don't accept these prices. I need something lower. Well, I can provide you with better prices, but on some additional sections of my page. Okay, let's do it. And it can take a day or two or a week to discuss it, because there's always some time on their end. You need to wait for the answer. So this is the most difficult and time-consuming, especially for the publishers who didn't do it in the past. If they don't have don't have the access, don't have the contact information, the data, to reach out to the buyers, it might be even somewhat impossible, especially during this time of year when everybody is overwhelmed with the amount of work they need to do to conduct the campaign successfully. Also, another thing that needs to be taken into consideration is that whenever I was using a deal, I was using it as a buyer, specifically only when the deal provided me with some additional value that I couldn't get from the open exchange. This is the only reason why I was even considering using a deal. For example, I was in contact with a publisher who had like 15 or 20 or 100, it doesn't matter, 1,000 people who are willing or thinking about buying some home appliance of specific price range. So I could target this very narrow group using a deal. I couldn't target them elsewhere. And I, of course, asked them to set me up with a deal that targets these people, and I implemented it into the setup of the campaign, and I checked the results because I wasn't sure if the significantly higher price, I think I was paying 20 times as much in the CPM as I was paying previously on the open market, because they didn't have the floor prices optimized. So I could get the impressions very cheaply. So I found out eventually that the value of traffic is significantly higher, and I kept it in the campaign in the long run. So the most important thing in terms of setting up those deals is to have some additional value that you can provide the buyers with. So this is the most important thing you have. And the most difficult thing when thinking about the deals is the time it's going to consume to have it all set up and to discuss it with the publishers, the buyers.
Sure. Yeah. So as always, we advise to scale up the premium transactions because they are more beneficial for publishers. They deliver more quality traffic for the buyers, so they make them more happy, and happy buyer, more money for you, most probably. So I think, I think I would agree here. When I had a training from like managing deals, private auctions, private guarantees, for me also the troubleshooting of it was crazy complicated. But of course, if you do it for 5 years already, for you it's like a piece of cake, and posting a post on Facebook or something for like regular Gen Z member. Okay, cool. Chris, I think we should wrap it up because we already talked a lot, gave some ideas, and we hope you guys will use them and benefit from them. We're open for any kind of comments and suggestions, of course, because we also like to learn, like to gather some kind of benchmarks, best practices and everything. So I think it's safe to sum up this whole webinar or discussion, call it as you want it, in a way that this year is different, and we should expect something different from the Black Friday as well. But it doesn't change the fact that the baseline is similar. You have to test, you have to stay updated, you have to look around for best practices. So what I can advise at the end, and thank you for staying with us so long, get in touch, even to us, free of charge. We can try and we can advise you some cool tips and tricks, but also look around in the industry. There are many places where you can talk with your peers, like Reddit AdOps, like Programmatic AdOps group. Look for the best practices, try to stay updated, try to get some knowledge and follow the flow and adjust to the industry changes. This is it. Thanks guys for sticking with us, and we invite you to the next webinars of Yieldbird. They will come in December, so stay tuned.